So with the part 1 video, and with this little compose button up here, you've got everything you need to be able to receive and send email. You don't have to do anything fancier than that with it. You can if you want. You've got all sorts of options from here, whether it's selecting a few of them or none of them, or choosing more and seeing some other actions that will pop up in here later on, depending on what you've selected. You can pretty much do everything the old Gmail account used to do, and certainly everything that Outlook used to do for you. However, there are some ways that we can tweak this to make it more useful. And the real key is over to the right page. It's this cog little icon, and that's the one Google uses anytime they want you to get to the nuts and bolts behind what it is they're working with. When you click on it, you've got some choices. Some comfortable display, cozy, or compact. Those are their descriptions of how much stuff they squish on a page. I usually use a pretty small little laptop, so I choose compact to squish a bunch on there. I could choose to configure the inbox, and that has to do with those tabs we talked about. I can do that from here as well. And then here's what I'm really after, settings. Because within that settings category, there's a lot of ability for us to adjust our Gmail experience. Ooh, that sounds fancy when I call it experience. It's just email. So I've chosen that, and the settings page pops up. And at the top, there are links to all the different categories within settings. The general sets most of the important stuff. The default language, how many emails you want to view on a page before you have to make it show you more. Options for external content, which is a good idea to know, to check those and make sure you're being asked for permission before you show anything too fancy on your web page. Browser connection, a lot of this stuff really, its default setting is in pretty good shape. You can mess around with it a little bit, but the one I wanted to point out to you down here is this undo send, enable undo send. It shows up in mine. If it's not in yours, I'll show you how to get it in there in a few minutes. And that'll let you maybe rethink your action to click send. Make an edit. And then this category here was stars. Remember I talked about a yellow star, and your preset is with 1 star. There are all these options. As a matter of fact, I've chosen to allow all of them. And if I keep clicking next to an email, I'll get a yellow star, and then an orange, and a red, and purple. And I can set these to mean whatever I really want them to mean. I haven't really designed a use for them right now, but I know that it'll be a fancy way to organize later on. A way to, the red things I'll mark, those are really got to take care of maybe. Or things that are purple, maybe those are things that require me to chase around my kid or something. I'll use them eventually, so I'm just going to click them so they're all available when I want them. Your chat notifications are here. We can talk more about chat later on if you're interested, and if you're not, we won't. And you can choose your picture. Oh, look at that, there's my face. I'm so pretty. But really the general tab is a place for you to control the basics of your web page. Scrolling down even farther on here, we've got a signature section where you can type in a default message to follow all of your emails. Every email I send will have this information in there. And I can insert it into quoted sections as well if I want. I don't really like that, so I'm not going to. There's a place to set vacation reminders in here, so if you're going to be gone and you want people to understand, hey, I'm gone, you're not going to get hold of me during this time, this is a good way to do it. Now, looking at those tabs up at the top, or those other options, I'm going to go to labels. I'm going to click that one next. System labels are the ones that come default with Google and are shown on the left-hand side of your email. You notice inbox is always there. I want to show the starred tab, show the important, but where it says chats, I really don't want it to have a tab for that. I'm not going to use that all that much. I chose to hide it. So all that junk over on the left, this labels section will allow us to choose to get rid of it or at least hide it if we don't want it. It doesn't make things go away, but it puts them away under this categories setting so we don't have to see everything necessarily, or pardon me, not under the categories setting, under the labels setting. So we can get rid of them if we don't want to see them all the time. Like spam. I know there's a spam folder. I don't care. I don't want to see it. Now categories. These are the tabs I've chosen, and I want to show all of those in the label list. I want to show all of those in the message list. If I wanted to show them in the message list, pardon me, I click here if I've chosen to hide them all. Circles, that's with Google+. We'll talk about that another time. Down here in labels, I've made a few that I really wanted to have for myself. I wanted a label that was for admin. I want to be able to mark any email that comes from my administrators, make it stand out in color so I don't miss it. Tends to be important when your boss tells you to do something, right? And you can create others. I've got science buddies that I've created for my whole department. And so I've created these labels that I can use to identify some important emails that come in. Anything that I need to follow up specifically, I've got a label I could use for that. These outbox features came with Gmail, and I haven't messed with those a whole lot. So you can add and create new ones if you like. I think it's a good idea to create a label. It's pretty simple if you're going to do it. I'm going to create a label right now, and I'm going to call it Kid, and I'm going to make this label mean something for if my daughter sends me an email. So I'm going to click Kid and create. And notice now I've got a new little icon over here, Kid. There's no default color to it, so I'll pick a fancy label color. Click on it and then hover over there. I'm going to pick purple because she would like that. There you go. So now I can label an email as from my kid, and that'll help me find it more quickly later on. I choose to show it. I can make all sorts of changes to it just from right over here. Matter of fact, I clicked on it, and by default everything that I've labeled kid, which is nothing, popped up. So I'll come back over to the cog, go back to settings, and labels. And now I've got my list of labels down here. I'm back right where I was. So these labels are one way to organize your email. Now, it's helpful if we can automatically label email that comes in with these. And probably the easiest way to do that is with the Filters tab. If you click on Filters, this is a way for you to ascribe some conditional settings to an email. If an email comes in that has this set of characteristics, then I want something to happen to it. So I'm going to choose to make a filter. All right, I'm going to choose here in the middle. It says create a new filter. And any filter that's from, in this case I want it to be from Samantha.Killmer. Oh, look, there she is with Portage. That's my daughter. And I could also make it to, an email that has a to someone else, or has a specific subject, or has certain words in it, or doesn't have certain words in it. Any of those operators work, and you can do multiple of those. Let's say I wanted anything from my daughter that had the subject of cookies. I know she's talking to me about Girl Scout stuff, but I just want everything from her to fall under this particular filter. I'm going to create a filter with that search. So anything with Samantha. I want to have some things happen to it. I want it to be starred. I want to apply a label to it, and the label I'm going to choose is, hey look, kid. Boom, right there. I could do other things to it. I could choose to forward it if I add a forwarding email address. I could choose to automatically delete. If you were being harassed by a company and you really don't want their emails ever coming in, that's a useful thing. I can choose to never send it to spam. I'm going to choose that because although Portage won't send another Portage email by default to spam, I want to be sure it doesn't end up there. I'll always mark it as important. That gives it a little yellow arrow next to it that says, hey, regardless of what star I've used to organize it, it's an important one, and it'll show up with a little yellow tag next to it. I could also choose to categorize it, and categorize it tells me which of those tabs I want it to go in. Remember the tabs from the first lesson? I want anything for my daughter to go in personal, so I'll select that, and it automatically checks the box. And then here, I could also apply the filter to matching conversations. That was, if I had other things from my daughter in my inbox, I could select this, and it would automatically sort all of those old things by this filter, not just new and incoming information. Then I'll choose Create Filter. And now, anytime something from my daughter comes in, it'll get a star next to it, it'll be labeled as kid, it'll never go to spam, it'll always be marked as important, and I can categorize it as personal, so it'll always show up in that first tab. You'll notice I've got one up here. Anything from my administrators in the admin filter. First name, comma, or, and then I've listed another administrator's email, or, and then another administrator's email. All of those were listed within one filter. And I chose in that second screen to star it, apply the label of admin that I had previously created, never send it to spam, and mark it as important. I've created a group out of there using this filter, my Science Buddies group. I made that label, and then I selected any email from those yahoos goes to that specific category of Science Buddies and gets that label as marked as important and categorized as personal. Another one from our principal's secretary, who always knows what's going on. Anything from her also gets labeled with admin as well, until I come up with a fancier title for her. So I hope that's helpful. That's a couple of good ways to organize your email that go beyond just the general nuts and bolts, but get you into that settings tab a little bit. Let me know how it goes.